and give your board better visibility to your end-of-year fundraising campaigns. I'm Karen Knue, a Customer Success Manager on the Onboard team, and my co-host today is my teammate Jillian Walker. We both focus on our nonprofit clients, and we are excited to be having this conversation with you today. We are also joined by implementation managers, Jenni Washington, and Customer Success Manager, Brian Martin, who will be moderating today's Q&A and chat.
Thanks, Karen. So let's get started. After a little housekeeping, we're going to dive into rethinking about using your onboard portal for more than just traditional meetings, as well as focusing internally for efficient planning, and then externally for engaging the board in campaign call to actions. So last, then we're gonna open it up to all of you, hopefully for some questions and maybe a little conversation. So this webinar came about from a conversation with one of our newer implemented organizations, and they were looking for ways to leverage this tool to check more boxes. So we talked about challenges this year, right, dealing with COVID, and they really expressed concern with fundraising, specifically Giving Tuesday. So this organization isn't facing these issues alone. This is affecting so many of us. Likely everyone that has joined us today is also concerned about fundraising and looking for ways to overcome this challenge. So we brainstormed and we thought about how we could leverage Onboard a little bit more. And then as a team, we thought, well, this would be a really great conversation to have with all of our nonprofit accounts. So whether you're education, healthcare, Cause and Cure, foundation, etc., fundraising is going to be hard over the next few years. So how can we help you leverage what you have?
Awesome, thanks Jillian. Before we dive in, we're going to cover a few housekeeping items. First of all of our attendees' mics are muted, so if you have any questions, feel free to please use the chat and Q&A function. You can also raise your hand and Jenni or Brian will reach out to you directly.
Awesome. So at the end of this time together, we want you to walk away with 3 key pieces of knowledge, right? So 1, that your calendar can be more than just a calendar. 2, with that, how to focus on staff alignment. And then 3, how to keep your board in the loop for that campaign messaging. Again, you're already paying for this portal. Let's get creative about how we can make it work harder for you. And we really want to spark those ideas about how to use Onboard in creative ways. So, but first, we want to hear, who is currently using your portal. We're going to do a quick poll. I'm going to launch it now. Here we go. So we're going to do a quick poll just to ask how you're using it. So is it just your board? Is it your board and committees? Is it your leadership team? Is it all? Is it other? Maybe you have another another way that you're using it. But we're really curious about how you use it. And that helps us get creative for you.
Looks like we have some responses coming in.
Nice. Thanks, guys. Let's give it a couple more seconds. So it looks it's really leaning heavy, obviously, external board. And we get that, right? We're a board portal. So board and committees, we knew that would be the highest. But we want to talk about today to see if we could brainstorm together and maybe spark a little curiosity about how we can possibly use your board portal maybe a little bit deeper. So I'm going to take this off of the screen. Perfect. So did I do that? I might have messed that up. Okay, so let's talk about calendar. So I have to say that thinking outside the box is my favorite thing. Jenni on this call is actually one of those people that kind of sparked that in me about thinking out of the box ways. So out of the box is my favorite thing to do, as well as getting more out of your product. So with Onboard, a great example of that is your calendar. So your calendar isn't just about building books, right? So for this webinar, we're gonna highlight your calendar for product management, or what I like to call living campaigns. So that one place of truth where everything is current. Think efficiency and organization where everyone contributes. So we're even working now with an organization out of Canada that's implementing this concept and we may have to do a little bit of a follow-up because I'd really like to hear results. So maybe from some of you, we might reach out later as well as sharing theirs. So on the screen, you can see your calendar laid out. So it's normal, right? Both meetings, but now we've also added campaigns. If you notice the titles, right, they're updated a little bit different, a campaign versus a meeting. You also see they have longer date ranges, so it stays in upcoming meetings. So let's dive deeper into that Giving Tuesday, that August 3rd meeting. Awesome. So when it comes to campaigns, it's not about the book. It is agenda, agenda, agenda. So from this slide, you can see all teams are involved, right? That little arrow, it shows marketing's involved, finance is involved, your development teams are involved, and they're building out the campaign agenda as, again, that single source of truth. So all of these documents are current. When one of them goes out of date, you put the other one in. So as all teams working together on this project, they want to have up-to-date and vital information for an aligned and successful campaign. So documents can be uploaded or linked from resources as well, right? You can see that in B, because think of last year's data. No one wants to pull all of that information out of resources just to upload. Again, you're not building a book. So remember, this is a collaborative project.
Awesome, thanks, Jillian. So we're also going to take a look at onboard tasks and how we can keep everything collaborative. Oops, there we go, sorry about that. What's great about onboard tasks is that any permission level can create and assign a task to any other user within the portal. You can assign a task to an individual or to a group. If you have a manager or committee that is monitoring a task, they can be assigned as a viewer. It's a great way to keep everyone accountable and to stay on track. In the first example here, you can see that the task is for a specific meeting, regardless of the team. The second example is a task that is assigned directly to a team. Also, what's cool about tasks is you can use it as a personal checklist. You don't have to it doesn't have to be assigned to a meeting or a campaign. You can create a task for yourself and monitor along the steps in order to create your overall bigger task. A second poll question here, and we're going to ask, how often does your team utilize tasks today? And it looks like we have that now up and going.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it looks like some of you do have tasks, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like the majority of people saying that they are currently not using tasks. Some are very little, and we have a few that are just using it often. All right, keeping going, we're going to jump on into Messenger. So keeping a single place of truth, as Jillian has mentioned, we can also keep conversations centralized within Onboard. We want to highlight that keeping the conversation out of text messaging and as well as email, where you might accidentally exclude a person, or you may accidentally delete an email.
Karen, I could not agree more about email. So let's move from internal staff to our external board. So keeping your board in the loop with ongoing campaigns like a Giving Tuesday could become really, really email heavy. So leaning in onto those announcements could save that redundancy, right, from extra communication. I know, again, we've said it now, I think like 4 times, that we beat this single source of truth to death, but it's really creating a landing page where your board sees clear and concise updates, as well as call to actions needed that can only benefit fundraising efforts. Personally, I've had a lot of conversations lately about announcements, and a lot of people just need to check your org settings, make sure that your board is landing on this landing page as opposed to just their calendar. And so this way they become sticky to that portal. This is where they know they're going to get that information. This is where you know you can update them. And so everything is current and all of those asks are current, and everywhere and everything is right in the right place. And then I want to circle back to Messenger. And I know Karen touched on it for your internal staff, right? So keeping those groups, but don't forget your board is a group too. Don't forget to use your board for discussion, for those quick updates, for those call to actions. If you're not using them, you're missing a great opportunity to engage your board even more. So just like the slide says, use Messenger for items that are timely, time sensitive, by encouraging your board to allow as always, we like to say push notifications, allow push notifications to your phone so they get that information quickly. Because if one board member has a question, I guarantee they all have a question.
That's right. So just to summarize the key takeaways from today's session, number one, we can use your calendar for more than just a book builder. You can use it to manage and organize ongoing campaigns and meetings outside of your board book. Number two, when all of your staff are on the same page, everyone is accountable and efficiency is going to go up. And number three, board members that are in the loop and are engaged are more active in your mission's fundraising. Remember, more than anything, it's really important to spark a conversation on how to use Onboard. So Jillian and I encourage you to reach out to us to see how you are currently using it or how you want to use your portal, and we can help you guys brainstorm.
Thanks, Karen. Really great wrap up. Okay, so with that, again, this was a very short but really concise, and I hope it sparked a lot of creativity with you. So with that, what questions or comments do you have for us today? We'd love to start the conversation. As always, if you are shy or think of something later, you can always reach out to your CSM. I also want to encourage, Brian and Jenni, who are also on this webinar, if they, Jenni with implementation hits a whole nother subset of, brand new clients with brand new ideas, may have something to add, and Brian on our team as well. So no pressure. They didn't know that was coming specifically, but if anyone has anything they want to add, as well as we can answer those Q&A questions, jump in.
Awesome. This is Jenni. So I'm excited to see a couple groups from education, obviously working with foundations. I just spoke with one of my groups that are getting ready to launch, and they took advantage of their giving day with their institutional foundation onboard portal to go ahead and plug in an announcement, as you guys saw, and put a link to their webpage, right, where they can find more information about giving. And I thought maybe, I don't know, Karen, again, just spitballing here with you and Jillian, maybe we could flip back to the slide that talks about like the meeting and maybe put something there and see if that sparks any thoughts.
Yeah.
Because you guys have done a fantastic job of showing some creative ways, maybe on the next slide, of how you can compile the agenda. Like you mentioned, Jillian, not for necessarily a book, but to help kind of coordinate everybody, all those important stakeholders, constituents internally, to facilitating what's happening for Giving Tuesday or Giving Day. So
I love that. And again, we do call this a campaign, but really, I mean, it's any project. You don't have to call it a campaign. It can just be, a big ongoing project for your, for your marketing team or your development team, your leadership team. So again, I love that. It's really all about the agenda. No one's going to open the book for this sort of project specifically, but it's really that, that single source of truth where everyone's coming together to make sure a project runs smoothly.
One thing I like about this example here too, it's very easy when we come to working with administrators that build the board books, and typically for your normal, typical monthly board meetings or quarterly board meetings, what have you. The natural instinct is to maintain really strict controls on who can edit and put content in there. And an example like this, because it is such a different than a typical board meeting, it's really important that you're opening up the contributor role to multiple groups, multiple organizations, or multiple committees and stuff in your organization that are all working together on this for the same goal, and allowing them to have access to add content, edit content into this section so everybody can see the same thing. It's not necessarily a really intuitive idea for a lot of administrators to wrap their heads around, because when you have this idea of using Onboard in a secure platform, it's really important to, in a board meeting, you really want control over the content and what's shared. In a situation like this where it's a totally different use case, you really want that control, that content editing ability to be disseminated amongst all the users that are contributing to this project or this campaign as we see here. And that's not necessarily something that's easy to wrap your head around if you're a strict control freak like some of us may be. maybe. But it really does allow the flexibility of the solution to come through and allow it to be used in this way. That's a little outside what most people would consider, but can add a lot of benefit, in my opinion.
No, I agree, Brian, 100%. Especially with, with new groups coming in, sometimes just going over, that control over that creator versus admin. I love the idea of everyone being a creator. I mean, who doesn't want a board to be engaged with the platform that you already pay for? And so again, they should be able to have, their own folder. They can create their own folder that really, has all of their documents that they can look at. And again, always access at at their fingertips. It's such a great idea.
Hey, Jenny answered a good question from Craig.
Yeah.
Jenny, you want to talk about that response there?
Sure. So Craig, who is listening in, actually had a question more about single sign-on and how individuals can authenticate. So that was in the chat, and we can provide some additional use. In general, though, everybody that needs to be able to access Onboard does have an Onboard account, which consists of their email address and a password, and they do have to be in your directory, in your member list. Once they do activate their account, each user has the opportunity to go into their profile and connect and authenticate going forward using Microsoft. So being that we rely Onboard with the Microsoft Azure platform, you can do some things there with that. So let me see if you've got any other questions, or perhaps I misunderstood. But yeah, so not necessarily specific to the specific topic at hand, but definitely an important question about how to allow others to have access. And Craig, if I missed the mark there on interpreting that, let me know.
I think I might be missing it a bit, but if you're building a campaign like this, and you can basically save it as a template, keep it in Onboard, don't delete it, and then use it for the next campaign too. If you copy the campaign as an admin, that can make it much easier to rebuild this and put it back together. Plus you're keeping all the permissions the same and such like that. I think that might.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brian.
Yeah.
I think I may have missed a little bit and went offside, but I think that also speaks to the groups, right? So you do have to create groups in Onboard. And for those of you that might be just spending a little extra time because you haven't really explored leveraging groups as part of the directory, make sure that you do have like those other stakeholders grouped together. So if you have the Marcom team or the other functional areas in addition to your board directors and officers, you can put them into groups and then leverage those groups when you need to provide access. So you do have to create them within Onboard specifically, but then you can take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to go back to Brian's comment about that agenda and that copy feature, because you're going to do a fundraising campaign every year. And if you've built out, again, that agenda, that recap of 20, we're going to say for the case of, on this screen, recapping that 2019 review, where we are for budgets today, where we are going to go for timelines, what marketing assets look like, all of those things, donor profiles. You don't need to recreate the wheel. You just need to refill in those blanks. So keeping that and then just, copying that over, especially for something so robust as certain projects or campaigns, is such a great idea.
Yeah, I think, and Craig even specifically just clarified his earlier question. I think that this will help then, yeah, because he was specifically looking, if he built a campaign, does he have to recreate it from scratch each time? And with the copy feature, that could definitely save some time. So hopefully, Craig, that is useful for you. The copy, just make sure that campaign resides there, doesn't get deleted, and then next year you can go back to it, find it in your past meetings calendar, and then just copy it again and use it as a template over and over. It's going to save you time and effort, because everyone knows that's the two resources we have in short supply more than anything else.
Time and resources. Yeah. I'm curious to know if anybody maybe likes to use the raise hand feature or something, or drop it in the chat. How many, of you are doing some of the things that we talked about today? Like, are you putting your, using your announcements for your campaigns as part of communications? Are you, have you thought creatively about using your calendar for campaigns, or those kind of living documents, or those kind of outside of the box besides your traditional board or committee meetings? And if anyone has anything that they've done that we didn't talk about, to give others ideas.
This is a very quiet group today. It's a very quiet group.
Holiday weeks.
I know. It's a very short week. Not everyone's brain has come back yet. I completely understand. But we are excited if this, again, sparks something in you and you think of something that we didn't think of for this, or if you're doing something completely different, or if you try this, and this is working for you, we'd really love to hear that. We always say that Onboard is better because of your feedback. So as always, we'd really, really love to hear what you do. And nobody's being called out today, and you can message your CSM or your implementation person, and we'll get back to you, and we would just like to have those conversations. So with that, I'm really grateful for everyone coming today. Karen, thank you so much for being a co-host with me. Thank you, Brian and Jenni, for joining in the conversation and adding to this a bit more. And we're grateful for all of you. So have a great rest of your afternoon.